I'm sort of an unfan of Microsoft, but they're taking a bad article. Microsoft's topological quantum computing is vaporware. Well, no, it's not. It's real. It's just that building one is an engineering task that Microsoft is ill-suited for. You know, what you need to build quantum computers is you need billions of dollars, and you need like a really, really deep bench of physicists and engineers, which is why IBM's doing so well, because they've got, you know, as I say, if money were brains, and they've got the money and they've got the brains, both. So Microsoft is pursuing a very, very interesting computing, topological quantum computing, the braiding phenomenon in Bose-Einstein condensates is fascinating as a medium for quantum computing, and has been, and I wrote several articles about it in the previous decade, but it's not paying off for them because they put money into various engineering projects. But the two great engineering projects, which is the Martinez group at University of California at San Diego, and then IBM's group, and to some extent they're working together now. That's where the real engineering skills are. Who is seriously into let's engineer this now is to, you know, an awful lot of those people who feel that way are involved in one or both of those projects. So Microsoft's having trouble getting traction because they're not a great engineering company. They're a pretty good software company, but they're not a great engineering company. So, so you'll see nonsense like this that they're trying to turn it into a sports competition. It's nonsense that I found on the web. Let's see what this is. If it's here. Is this one? I'm trying to figure out. Well, anyway, the article isn't important, but there was an article in the Popular Science Press that let's see here. So I can pop back for a second here and talk, so I can talk with my hands. So there was an article in the Popular Science Press that said, you know, the lead for it was something like, you know, IBM, you know, Google challenges IBM for quantum supremacy. And while it is true, I think that Google would like to own this and IBM would like to own this, and there is, to a certain extent, such a competition. The truth is they had misunderstood the term quantum supremacy. Quantum supremacy is a term of art. It means intermediate goal in the quantum computing world of proving that there are computations that at a certain density of computation and a certain density of qubits, quantum computers overwhelmingly can outperform classical computers. And that proof exists in theory, but it does not exist in the engineering world yet. And Google has put a lot of money into proving mathematically and technologically that quantum computers will achieve quantum supremacy over conventional computing. But as they were approaching what they thought was a proof, IBM sort of threw a wrench into it, because IBM, who are building have built quantum computers of various qubitness up to, I think, in the 20s, which is fabulous, something between 17 and 26, somewhere there, just an amazing number of qubits in the CPUs that they have built, considering this all has to happen at, you know, low Kelvin temperatures and all that. IBM, of course, while doing this and opening this up to the public and providing tons and tons of visual tools on Blue Wave incorporating QASM, which is the quantum assembler that you can write quantum code for right now, and it runs on the real processor. But since it's open to the public, it also has to run on an emulator because everybody can't have the processor all the time. So IBM, in addition to everything else, has become fabulous at writing emulators of quantum computations. And they got to a point where they were able to emulate a 56-bit processor in real time, which a lot of people thought was impossible. So there was an article, about that, about IBM's challenge to Google's quantum supremacy. But what it was really about was that they had put back Google's ability to prove that they had put back Google's mathematical attempt to prove that quantum computing would always would at some horizon begin to totally outperform classical computing. IBM pushed that horizon back a little bit. So that's the kind of misunderstandings you're getting in the mass media at this point. So let me see, how are we doing on time here? Okay, got a few minutes left. Anyway, the article about quantum supremacy.
You can also go over, Jack.
Okay.
Lunch is just after you, so not a problem.
Very good. Well, I don't want to have a bunch of hungry programmers after me. So.
They're fairly calm about it.
Okay. Well, so here's an article if you want to know what quantum supremacy is and what the proof is, and Cornell University Library, the archive. I think this one is free, that you can just download it.
You should share your screen again if you're going to talk about.
Oh, I see. I thought I was. Excuse me. Hold on a second. Let's see here. I forgot that it was just me. I'm sitting here moving my mouse. That's fascinating, I'm sure. So, okay. So here is, I'll go back. Here is a blueprint for demonstrating quantum supremacy with superconducting qubits. This is from Google and NASA Ames. Some of these, and UCSB stuff. A lot of people on this paper, and this is here. Okay, all these links I will put on the screen in a moment. I have them over here. So this is what quantum supremacy really is. This is what they're talking about. Oops. Let's see here. There's all sorts. Now, of course, in quantum computing, the real is not building a processor. Well, there's a couple problems. When IBM makes $1 trillion selling a quantum computer, it will be because certain problems have been solved. One problem, the biggest problem that they've been wrestling with, and that John Martinez and the Martinez group have been wrestling with, and Google and everybody, is error correction. If you spend all your time validating a computation, you lose your time advantage in quantum computing. The phenomena that we depend on for classical computing are statistical. The 1 and 0 properties of a transistor are governed by the rules of quantum physics, and as the transistors have gotten smaller, they've had to reassess the guides as to how you tell the difference between a 1 and a 0, because they're down below 1 million electrons traveling through the transistor, well below that now. And they found when they first got there in the 90s that all of a sudden 1 wasn't always 1 and 0 wasn't always 0, so they had to do a little work there. When you get down to computing using single atoms, of course, it's much, you're running into Heisenberg, so you have to evaluate the statistical likelihood that you've gotten the answer you were looking for. A binary computer says yes or no. A quantum computer says maybe or I think. They're like Mr. Spock. Well, Captain, there's 97.5% that the Klingons are going to wipe us out. So it's that kind of a thing. So error correction is the big issue with the processors. But then what do you do with long computations? How do you cannot, as we have discussed for years, you folks and I, as we discussed for years, you can't interrupt a quantum computation. If it's a long computation, the entire computation has to take place in the quantum state without a period of observing the results. So you can't take out an intermediate result as time is running out on entanglement. You can't take out an intermediate result, store it in a conventional environment, and then feed it into the next step of the quantum calculation. The algorithms don't work like that. So what about memory? What about quantum DRAM? Is there such a thing? No, there is not. But as of announced that they in the Netherlands, they were able to this is the key sentence right here. The Delft scientists have now shown that a single electron spin and a single photon can be coupled on a silicon chip. That is, quantum states, if what you're computing with, if the quantum state you're computing with is spin, well, electrons have spin and photons have spin. That's very nice, you know, so you can, and if you can transfer, and it's known that you can transfer one to the other. If you have an electron gas, I interviewed a fellow several years ago in England who, at Oxford, with the Oxford team on quantum computing, they were, you know, using electron gas as a storage medium. They would send photons in and hit electrons, and, you know, 2 photons would be absorbed into an electron and there would be a delay, and then 2 photons with the same spin as the original ones would burble out of the electrons and proceed on their merry way till they hit another electron. And this is basically a DRAM effect. This is what, you know, kind of, you know, analogous to what DRAM does, that the, you know, the charge replicates the current charge, you know, in your DRAM refresh cycle. So the question is, how do you keep quantum results past the less than a second time that you can count on the entanglement in the actual computation in the Josephson junction? They're all using Josephson junctions now, which are the quantum equivalent of transistors. You will remember that a Josephson junction is 2 layers of superconducting material sandwiched around a non-superconducting material, and it becomes a you know, a frequency amplifier. As you increase the voltage on one side of the circuit, the frequency of the wave on the other side increases. It's a very weird quantum effect that happens only in superconduction. So, you know, this entanglement between the qubits has a limited lifetime. And so how do you grab intermediate results and then bring them back? And the attractive thing has always been photons, you know, because photons in some ways are more manageable and dependable than electrons. You know, they live in kind of a slightly different energy level, and they seem to persist. It has been discovered in recent decades, for instance, that the entanglement between photons persists into chlorophyll when light strikes a leaf, and the entanglement is still present after many layers of cells filled with chlorophyll have been penetrated by the incoming impinging photon pair. So photon entanglement is a very kind of durable phenomenon if you can manage it, and there's all sorts of interesting ways finding to manage it. So if you can couple on the silicon chips that they're using to do quantum computing to make qubits, so if you can couple electron spin and photon spin on that device, then if you come up with a device for a light-based device for storing quantum information, such as the crystal they came up with a few years ago that you put a charge in it one way and you're sending light through it, and then you take the charge off and the light gets frozen inside it. And then when you put the charge back on, the electrons, the photons reemerge with the same spin. You can sit there and let it sit for minutes, and then you turn the charge on, and they come right back out like nothing happened. So we are getting much, much closer to quantum memory because of discoveries like this. You know, you can couple, apparently, qubits to photons. And as soon as you do that, you're like just on the threshold of quantum DRAM. So this is the most, I think this is the most exciting thing I've heard this year, is this from the University of Delft. That's probably the biggest technological breakthrough. And, you know, aside from the very hard, you know, perspiration rather than inspiration based work that they are doing in the engineering of these physical devices and making bigger and bigger chips with bigger and bigger numbers of qubits, and all foundrying them with conventional equipment. And of course, you know, when we get down to sociological and popular interpretations of quantum computing, Fortune magazine is very interested in the question of whether Bitcoin goes bye-bye as soon as there's a quantum computer. It does or it doesn't. I haven't evaluated the arguments, but I think that that's, again, you know, that this, you know, what happens when this comes out of the realm of the laboratory into the popular discussion. Everybody finds a use for it. Wants to know if you can bust Bitcoin. Yeah, stop. Stupid autoplay video. Stop. What's the first thing you do with it? In other words, one answer to the question of what's the first thing you do with a quantum computer is mine all the remaining Bitcoin instantly. And stop. Go away. Anyway, everybody's after your money. That's the message of Fortune magazine. But some people are after other things. If there's any argument as to why, go away. No advertisements. Stop it. China demonstrates quantum encryption. What's this thing with touching a globe that all these people do? You had the guys in Saudi Arabia touching a globe, and now you have the guys in China touching a globe. There must be some secret cult of touching glowing globes. World of the people at the top of the system, you know. So the answer is, I think I know the answer to it, which is if one of, it's like dogs in a fire hydrant. If one of them does it, the others all have to do it.
Kevin was asking whether you've seen the Woody Allen movie with the globe.
So, which one's that? Which movie is that?
Which movie?
The Orb?
The Orb.
Sleeper. Yeah.
Sleeper.
Oh, Sleeper. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, yeah, of course. It was filmed where I live. I mean, I constantly pass places that are in the movie. You know, the flying saucer house and they filmed it was at NOAA. They filmed the other thing. The brick build, the beautiful sandstone building is the NOAA building up in Boulder. Stuff like that. They filmed that in Colorado. So anyway. So the Chinese have demonstrated a practical demonstration of quantum key distributions, showing it's possible to encrypt and send data between two locations in a highly secure way. So the race is on. You know, Fortune is after your money, and China's after your encryption, and I'm sure we're after their encryption. And so this is really happening here. This was a lot of fun to talk about as a speculative art. Now, but if you just get on the web and take a quick look, you will find that it is a very, very hot topic with people with billions of dollars to put into the pursuit of El Dorado here. And everybody's after it. and it can't be long. Other, wiser heads than mine have changed their estimations. They were saying, a couple of years ago, they were saying, okay, in 25 years. Then they were saying in 15 years. Now saying, man, we could have this in 7 years. So it is coming along very, very quickly. And here I have put up on the web all the links that I had today to show you. And let's see, and just to make sure you have it, let me see if I can paste you in chat. I will paste you in that link.
Well, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh,
send it by email to Dave or Kevin.
Okay.
And Dave's right over there, someplace.
Okay. Do I have Dave's email address?
Yeah, mine.
You've got Kevin's.
Okay. Let's see here. To Kevin.
That'll work.
Kevin Apricant's up. The links from my presentation.
Yep. Thank you. And that will help. And amazingly, our audio hasn't cut out.
Right. Well, we got lucky this time. Maybe they get.
Well,
Okay.
Even after 3 times, we defeated the conspiracy theory. No, the camera's up there now. Climb up, stand up.
So, going forward, you said you wanted to give a presentation on whatever other was. Is that still the case?
Well, I have some thoughts.
I wondered what that burning smell was. Let me ask you this then.
Well, it's not the hair on top of my head. I'll tell you that right now.
All right.
No, that already happened.
That already happened. I burned that all off years ago. But what my thoughts were really was I think about my practice over the last 30 years and to what extent Forth influenced that and influenced my approach. And there are I think pretty concrete answers to that.
I have it in mind. Hold that thought. I have it in mind that if you posted a video on YouTube, we could sit here slack-jawed in amazement and watch the YouTube video and tell people that the morning part of the meeting is on YouTube already. We're going to be sitting here watching it. You can watch it along with us. And then maybe we could do audio Q&A at the end of it. And that would be more reliable than what we've done so far.
Huh.
And now that this sort of has affected us a bunch of